Talking Music with Big Andy. In this episode, Millie Manders from Millie Manders and the Shut Up is talking music with me, Big Andy. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today I have with me Millie Manders from Millie Manders and the Shut Up. Hiya.
Hello.
How are you today?
Thank you. How are you?
I am fine, thank you very much. A little bit flustered because I thought that for some reason I thought we were doing this at 3 o'clock and it was at 2 o'clock, even though I set the time up, which is...
Well, that's okay. We both made it.
Shows how organised I am. So, yes, you are the lead singer with Millie Manders and the Shut Up, which I was interested to see you have as a description, as a quote from Fortitude magazine, which says it's high octane, fierce, bursting with attitude and almost obnoxiously addictive.
Yes.
Which is quite a strange sort of quote, really, but I mean, it's punk, but it's more than that you do, isn't it?
We like to coin the phrase cross-genre punk because our music, in essence, has a punk attitude to it. It's quite socially conscious in a lot of ways. We address certain issues that wouldn't necessarily be often addressed in things like pop or softer genres. But we have a lot of influences from other varying genres such as ska and hip hop and dance and metal and things like that. So yes, we are, in general terms, we are put into the punk bracket as we should be and as we want to be, but it's cross-genre punk. Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, having the brass in the band, you've got the sax and trumpet and that sort of thing, depending on the tracks. It adds a different sound and depth to the music to a lot of punk bands. I can see it's got the ska influence, but it's a bit more subtle than it is in the ska punk stuff. It kind of becomes part of the music rather than being the main focus of the music.
Yes, and that's absolutely deliberate as well. We don't want to be branded as a ska punk band because we feel that we have a lot more to offer than just being a by the book ska punk band, and there's nothing wrong with that. I personally absolutely love ska punk. Some of my favorite bands are from that genre. Yeah. But we all have so many different influences from our evolution as singular musicians that we want to have more of a focus on being as eclectic as we are as a group, not just the ska part of it.
Right. Now I saw, and I don't know, is this correct that you started doing musical things when you were 5 years old?
Yes.
What was that did that involve then?
Well, at 5 years old, I was sort of dabbling with piano lessons, and I was playing the recorder at music classes after school at primary school, even though we were doing it in music classes, but I distinctly remember after school clubs as well. But I mean, my mother would tell you that I was singing through my food in my high chair. Music has always just been part of something I've wanted to do. I was in theatre productions from very early on as part of sort of the choruses. I was in choirs from the age of probably 10 or 11. So I've never really not been playing music of some sort or been involved in something that has had music in it.
Right. And then, I mean, you were in, you had music projects and bands before. So you said you went solo in 2013.
2012.
2012. See, that's the problem with looking online. It's people don't get it right. And then you put the Shut Up together in 2015,
14.
14. See, a year out both times.
Well, I suppose 2015 is when the band name Shut Up started happening. 2014 is when I started touring properly with band musicians that weren't just session musicians. So I was still very much a solo entity until probably late 2015, when Shut Up sort of got coined by us. But actually the band that I have now, and this is the most solid lineup with the most dedicated musicians I've ever worked with, only really formed in 2019. So really you could look at different levels of evolution of myself and my band, even as recent as 2019, because it has been a really long, hard road for me as a solo entity, trying to find dedicated, hardworking, kind musicians to be part of my team.
Yeah. So. How did you all come together then? How did the band come together?
Largely, I started working with session musicians in 2013, when I started wanting to tour more with a band rather than acoustically. Alessandro, my drummer, or Alex as he prefers, started working. His first gig with us was in 2014. It was Easter Day of 2014, I think, or at least the Easter weekend up in Scotland. And he came to a show where I had a session drummer playing, who I wasn't particularly thrilled with. He was a fantastic drummer, but he was more of a jazz musician, so he didn't really fit the sound I was trying to do, but he was the guy that was available for this show. And Alex walked up to me and basically said, yeah, I could do that better.
Fair enough.
Said, okay, money where your mouth is, let's go. And Alex is still my drummer. He is the longest standing current member of the band. James, I worked with a couple of times on a couple of shows. He was in a different band who came and supported us at a couple of shows that I personally put on as the event manager. And then when it came time for my previous guitarist to leave, James applied for that position and auditioned and got the job. And George, she prefers, on bass, she started working with us in September of 2020. So James was sort of the early summer of 2020. 2019. George sort of September of 2019, but was writing with us from about August. I kind of stole her. I was working at Access Creative College, and George was a previous student who had come back in to work with a girl on her project and with her band. And I walked into the rehearsal room and said, well, you're bloody fantastic. Careful, I'll poach you. And then proceeded to.
Well, why not?
So that's the whole band and how they came to be part of Shut Up.
Cool. And the question I have next is, how did the name come about?
Alessandro. Alex is a fiery Italian man who, when he first got in the band, was quite green and would often find words or expressions from England very amusing, and would start laughing and do the whole ha ha ha, shut up, not really, shut up kind of thing. And we found it very funny, and we would all copy him and mimic him, and it just became something that we did in a van. Like, yeah, it was just like a private joke amongst the band. So when somebody said, well, you can't really call yourself Millie Manders on its own now because you've got this band that constantly tours with you, so who are you? It must be Millie Manders and something. And the Shut Up just seemed like such a good fit for who we are as a band, for the private jokes that we hold, and it's got that little bit of aggression that works with our sound.
It also has that kind of mystery to it, which is the fact that if you were to see the name, if you don't know the band and don't know the music, and you see the name, you have no idea exactly what sort of music you play.
Yeah, I feel like because of its aggression, it definitely would give you at least an assumption that it would be a harder genre.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess so. But then, I mean, what band name do you look at and guess the genre?
Yeah, I know it's true, but I mean, some bands. I mean, if you saw a band with a name like Annihilator, I don't think you'd think that they were a sort of sugary pop band.
No, but then Catfish and the Bottlemen, I wouldn't necessarily assume that they were going to be indie.
True, very true. So let's have a look at a clip from a video.
Sitting on the pile of hate that I collect and keep. I've been tasting pile of late and it's washing over me. I said I could forgive you, but I'm taking that all back. I thought I would forget, but you're the focus of my wrath. Everybody thinks you're golden in the social, so you're fake. No one knows the truth about you, but a snake you will remain. Anytime I see your name or your stupid happy face, the violence I can feel uprising makes my body start to shake. I'm bitter, you got me here with hate. Now I'm bitter, my heart can't stop this. I'm bitter, there's comfort in this place. While I'm bitter.
Your influences. What are your influences?
Personally, vocally, you've got everything from Aretha Franklin, Gwen Stefani, Skin from Skunk Anansie, Dolores from the Cranberries, Pink. I'm very eclectic with my vocal influences, but largely really strong, unique female voices. But then also people like Sack de la Rock from Rage Against the Machine, Scroobius Pip, they're big influences of mine as well. As a band, obviously you've got all that sort of stuff, a bit of old school punk. Alex is really massively into sort of Blink 182 and 21 Pilots, and I think you can hear that in his drumming. James is a massive lover of US ska punk, as am I. Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, Goldfinger. George loves things like You Me at Six, Lower Than Atlantis, and Shikari, and all of those bands I love as well. So you know, I grew up in an incredibly eclectic household, and I've listened to all of those bands growing up. So yeah, massively eclectic, huge different influences, and each band member has their own sort of subgenre that they love more than others.
Fair enough. I must admit, I was looking through sorry, I was looking through videos on your YouTube channel, and there's some really good stuff on there. I really love it. I was surprised at how old some of them were, to be honest, because I when I started doing this, I started doing bands that I was already following, already knew. And then I looked at other bands that they were following, and then bands that came up in gigs and things like that. You know, they played support gigs too, all that sort of thing. And I didn't find your name until very recently. And I was kind of surprised then when I looked on the YouTube channel to find you've got videos on there that are like 6-10 years old. Because I thought, why has it taken me so long to come across the name? And why has it taken me so long to even know about the band? It just seemed a bit odd to me. So, I mean, is there a reason for that at all? Have you been kind of hiding yourself away? Or?
No, not at all. But I would say that with a music industry that's saturated with literally billions of pieces of music, you're not necessarily going to have the connections come around to me. And if you've not been listening to bands in the underground, things like Risky and the Ridicule, Call Me Malcolm, Popes of Chili Town, and the other sort of underground ska bands and punk bands, then you won't necessarily have come through it to us through that either. So it depends on the subgenres that you've been listening to, and it can even come down to the geography of the bands that you've been particularly listening to, and whether or not we've been on that scene's radar over the last few.
I must admit that for the first season that I did of this, a lot of the bands that I interviewed came from the north of England,
Right?
More from around sort of Manchester and that sort of way. which is what I'm trying to expand it a bit now and look at different places. But I love the video and the song for Teddy.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I just really like that. It's musically it's really great anyway, but the video is really good. It's a great video, really good to watch.
Yeah, Louis did a great job with that one.
Here's another video clip.
When I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking which way's best to throw myself off buildings to land nicely on my head, it might be time to rethink the direction of my path, take back control of the black hole that's swallowing my heart. In a glass box staring at my words for silent all around, and you can't hear me scream for help. My mouth moving drowns me out. In a glass box staring at my words for silent all around, and you can't hear me scream for help. My mouth moving drowns me out.
And I wrote a little list of things that I liked. There's that one, Bitter, I liked.
I had a lot of fun doing that one. Yeah.
That video looked like it would be good fun to do, and it's a very interesting song as well.
Yes.
And Monster is it's great. It looks fantastic. It's got a great look to it. And Burnout I liked as well. That was quite good, quite fun. The other two I was like my one, Silent Screams. I liked the whole feel of that is really good, and the fact you've got it on the rooftop and you it kind of gives it an interesting dynamic.
Yes. We wanted to, or rather I wanted to create the claustrophobia and the vertigo feeling to accompany the lyrics with that one.
Yeah, it does. It's really weird how being out in the open like that actually feels claustrophobic, which is quite strange. It's very interesting. And lastly, it's the most up to date video on there, which is Broken Record.
Yes.
Which I must admit, a friend of mine said, did they do this just to get a free holiday?
No, our tour manager lived in that caravan at the time, so.
So you recording and that, what have you been doing a lot of recording and stuff during lockdown, or have you been writing more?
So our album was actually recorded at the end of 2019. We wrote it in 6 months. And then over the 2020 lockdown, we kept our release schedule to do the 4 singles and then the album release at the end of 2020. We're still just finishing off that album cycle with a couple of singles now that will be released over the next few months. And then it will be on to the writing and recording of the second album.
Okay. I mean, now that things are opening up everywhere again, I'm taking you're getting out there and doing more gigs and being able to play the stuff live.
Yeah, we did a 26-date tour. Well, it was a 26-date tour that got booked, and we ended up doing 22 of them. 2 got cancelled by the venues and 2 got cancelled because of us getting COVID. And that was at the end of last year. We've got a 10-date tour with Less Than Jake starting on the 29th of March. And we have a 16 tour dates in June. And then we'll likely have an autumn winter tour again.
Cool. That's really good. So are you playing all over the UK, or is it sort of as specifically the sort of south of England?
No, we'll be all over the UK again. We'll try to hit as many towns and some more places if we can over the year. and then we've got one in Germany and one in Norway this year.
Cool.
And then we'll be looking to do more EU next year.
I saw on one of the websites it was saying that you'd had airplay in a lot of different countries, including New Zealand and places quite far afield like that.
Mhm.
Has the internet radio and that sort of thing played a big part in spreading your music?
I don't know. It's really difficult to tell, but especially because internet radio is first and foremost, it's niche. It doesn't tend to have a huge amount of listenership. But I'm sure, you know, it must have played some kind of part. We do have people in, well, upwards of sort of tens of countries. So I'd say probably 30 no, Spotify, we had 70 odd countries played last year. People were streaming it, and you know, you never know. Of course, there will be a small contingency of people that will have followed us on Facebook and stuff. And we're just grateful for anybody playing our music. So if we can, if it's one person listening to us in New Zealand or two in Brazil or whatever, we're just grateful for people wanting to hear our music.
And you, I mean, you have had some play with the BBC and that sort of thing. So has that brought widened your sort of audience at all?
Certainly when we got single of the week a couple of times with BBC Radio Norfolk. We haven't had any Radio 6 or Radio 1 or anything like that, but certainly we've had localized support from the BBC. And last year I did a couple of interviews for BBC Look East. And that certainly raised our profile a little bit. We saw some more followership, and around the local area, a couple of people recognized me out and about, which was nice.
Yeah. So you were saying that now when you finish the singles for this album, then you'll start looking to putting stuff together for the new album, that sort of thing. So when do you expect that to be recording that and for that to be out?
I mean, that's a how long is a piece of string question, unfortunately. We will go in the studio when we feel that we have a bodywork of songs that are right to be released as an album. And we're not going to rush it in the same way that we did the first album. We want to be able to really cultivate the songs. Not that we didn't for the first album, we did what we thought was right, and we created 10 songs that we all really enjoyed playing. But this time I feel like we've got more of an opportunity to not like race to have a second album out. There's plenty of people that have never heard the first album.
Right.
There are going to be plenty of touring. And so we'll be looking to ensure that the songs are right rather than worrying about whether or not people need to have a second release.
Right. Let's have a look at one more video.
Saying sorry doesn't cut it when you know it doesn't mean nothing. I lie here waiting for the nothing to take my broken brain away from me. Saying sorry doesn't cut it. Try to tell me you don't feel proud of what you've done and how you did it when you buried every feeling down. Can't get you out of my head. I'm still dreaming of you in my bed. You're like a song that won't end. Heartbreaking melody goes round again. Ooh, heartbreaking melody goes round again.
What about for the future? Do you have a big plan for like a sort of where you're going to be in 10 years time, or do you take it 1 year at a time and just see what comes up?
Yeah, I mean, the music industry isn't really like any other business. In terms of finance, if I'm looking at it from a purely business perspective, then in terms of finance, I need to try and increase the curve for earnings and the type of festivals and venues we're playing, which means thinking about fan base increase and stuff, but that's all very boring monetary demographic number type stuff. In terms of just the art, in the music industry, you don't really look further than a year or two, because your music is always evolving. There are so many different factors that can trip you up, and no matter how good you are, part of the game is luck and hoping that the right people see you, the right people come on as part of your team to help you propel that forward. And it's just a case of trucking on, keeping plugging and keeping writing, really.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. One thing I did see, which I thought was really brilliant, to be honest, and it need more people to do this, is that you've got a very eco attitude towards merchandising and your releases, in that you have pledged not to have use plastics and that sort of thing for covering them and wrapping them. Is that something that you actively work towards, a sort of ecological sort of thing?
Yeah, in fact, I've got a roll of plastic just behind me that came in today. This is biodegradable bubble wrap.
Wow. Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? So because I have to post some photo frames shortly, and I knew that I was going to need to use bubble wrap, and that was making me feel sick even thinking about it. So I went online and researched, and Argos, of all people, are selling biodegradable bubble wrap. It is a little bit more expensive, but I would much rather have any of our packaging being biodegradable or at least recyclable than continue to put into the single-use plastic vial trades that we have.
Excellent. I mean, I think more bands should be doing this sort of thing, especially because of the fact that there's so much stuff being sent around nowadays, and so much so many things being purchased online and being sent out, that you get the stuff and it's got so much packaging with it and so much plastics, and it's not needed a lot of the time.
No, it's really not. And actually, there's a great company called Kite Packaging. And I think it's more difficult for younger bands, for smaller bands. You can always use rolls of brown paper, but that's going to take you hours to wrap 20 t-shirts. But once you're starting to get to a certain level of volume for your merch purchases, there's no reason why you can't go to somewhere like Kite Packaging and buy the paper. In fact, I've got one sitting here. I buy paper bags instead of the plastic bags to post merchandise in, and I have paper tape instead of plastic tape. And if you're buying in bulk, it's marginally more expensive at the moment, and that's only going to decrease with demand. So if more people stop buying the plastic bags and start buying the paper bags, that price will decrease as well. And then people will be able to start creating recycled paper bags, which is better, but you have to start the train, don't you? You have to start, somebody's got to at least start putting that out there and setting the example, and we're trying to do that as much as possible.
Cool, that's really good. Well, it's been really great talking to you. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. I hope everything goes well with the album and the single releases to come, and with the writing of the new album and with the tours. And I look forward to hearing more from you, because as I say, although I've only come to the band recently, I really like what you do. It's good stuff. And I think just about every band that you named as being an influence of bands that I've listened to and that I've liked. So, it's stuff that I can really kind of understand and get behind, and it's really good. So all the best with everything for you and the band. Thanks, Andy. Have a lovely day. I'm sure we'll chat soon. Yeah. Thank you to everybody for joining us. I will put up links to Millie Manders' websites and YouTube channels and everything, so that you can follow their music and see what's going on. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye. Cheers. Talking Music with Big Andy.